All right, it's district breakdown time. We're going at 7-6A this year, which is now added a new team to the district to make it 9 teams. And that team is a doozy with Highland Park coming up there. Talk to me about how you feel this district may play out.
I feel like we're back in 5A D1 with all these 9-team districts, and we got our first 9-team district in this thing. I think it's going to pretty much play out like it did last year, as far as who is at the top. But now we've got a big dog in here in Highland Park, and I think Highland Park is going to push everybody back down. I almost had to double check, and I'm plugged into the high school football world, Ward, but I always have to check to make sure Randy Allen is still the coach over there, because it seems like he's retired about 3 or 4 times now, and still finds his way over there. And now we got Rodney Webb over there as the athletic director, taking over my boy Coach Ringo, letting him retire. How are all these people able to retire, and Coach Allen can't find his way to Key West quite yet? That's my question about this district for you, Ward. I know you got all the inside information about the retirement funds and all of that. So what's going on with that?
Yeah, he needs a couple more years to put some stuff away. He hadn't made enough money yet. But you're true. That is true. There always seems to be a rumor that he'll wait till late so he can get one of his guys, have to force one of his guys in there. But
every year. But Highland Park is just loaded at quarterback. Obviously having Brennan Storer coming back, but their competition for second team is going to be the kind of quarterbacks that could probably go start for half of the other teams in the area. Highland Park Quarterback University, quite again, they are just going to be a offensive juggernaut. Paxton Smith coming back at running back, John Rutledge at receiver. We talked about last week how a couple of the teams like Plano West are really looking for receivers. Highland Park's 5th and 6th receivers could probably go over and start for Plano West. Highland Park's got some Grayson Schrank. I mean, I just keep Luke Herring. I just keep looking at all of the talent that they have on the offensive side of the ball, and I'm amazed. They're going to have some questions on the defensive side of the ball, and it's been a few years since Highland Park has had to win by shootout, but I think this year might be the year that they have to win by shootout. But I think they're going to be in the right district to win some shootouts and have a defense that is kind of young. If you remember a couple of years ago, Ward, Southlake had a very young defense, and they got lit up in non-district, and by the time they were playing Duncanville in the playoffs, you wonder, like, it's an all-world kind of a thing. And Highland Park very well may be like that this year with a lot of people that you don't know about, and then by the time we get to week 11, week 12, in starting to get into the playoffs, we start to know their defense a little bit. But having a pretty soft district, I think, will give them a chance to grow defensively, because again, with only 2 non-district games, and then you go, and they're going to be playing 6A teams. If I remember right, they got Marcus and Louisville in non-district. And they play Plano East in their scrimmage. So we're going to get some calibration real early with Highland Park, but they are a strong number 1 on my docket.
And I would have to agree with that too. And that their big game during district play will be on September 30th when they play Jesuit at home. Jesuit has won this district the last 2 years, or they tied for the win 2 years ago. But I tell you what, when you talk about players that are the hardest to replace, and people always say a quarterback, a left tackle, something like that, but I would say somebody like Robert Fitzgerald is hard to replace. A guy that's at the 6A level that you can pull off on either offense or defense to say, hey, make a play to either stop him or score. And now he's gone, so they're going to have to make some replacements there at Jesuit. But how do you think they're going to handle that replacement and replacing the quarterback as well?
How many bobbleheads did you make for Fitzgerald? Did he get 2?
1 for offense and 1 for defense. Now we just got him to 1.
He's got him the 1, but all you got to say is his name, and he got at least 1. Jesuit, for me, I think it's going to be a little bit of a rebuilding year. I think I'm going to slot them just below Lake Highlands in this district, so a solid number 3. But again, I think they're far and above the 4th spot. The 4th spot's going to be the battle in this district. I think we almost have 3 tiers. I think you have the Highland Park tier number 1, Lake Highlands tier number 2, Jesuit tier number 3, and then everybody else is going to be battling for that fourth position. And that's where the fun is going to be in this district, and it was last year. Jesuits got Robert Prager, who I think might be that kind of Fitzgerald kind of a player this year. I think from his previous work, I think he can kind of step into that role and do a little bit of everything. We'll kind of see their expected quarterback is Will Greenwood. We'll kind of see if he can step in. He's had Jesuits had some really good quarterbacks over the last decade. So, generally speaking, if you're anointed to be the man at Jesuit, you're expected to be pretty good. You probably are pretty good. Nicholas Westerhyde expected to be the running back. These things can, are very fluid. That's just what we hear, what we see on huddle and things like that. Jesuit for me, because they don't really play a lot of 7-on-7. They've got some questions, and they're kind of the team that is under the surface that we're going to have to see those first two non-district games to see how they're going to be. They could come up all of a sudden on our radar with a couple of key transfers, late or freshmen or sophomores who are coming up who might be flying under the radar. Jesuit is a big unknown, but I've got them number 3. I'm very excited about Lake Highlands this year. Again, losing everything they've had the last couple of years, I think Lake Highlands has been a top 10, top 15 team in the area pretty consistently over the last 2 or 3 years. I think in an area perspective, they're not going to be as good as they've been the last couple of years, but I do think that they are still a pretty solid team. Deontay Dean is a great running back. Jeremiah Richards expected to take over at quarterback. And the reason I say I'm so excited about them this year is Lake Highlands has been a team that has been down quite a bit. If you look at you look at the 90s, and Lake Highlands was right up there with Plano and Plano East as one of the big dogs. And over the last 4 or 5 years, and they had a decade where this kind of fell apart and were down at the bottom of the district. And then over the last 4 or 5 years, they've kind of come back to prominence. Can they continue that, or was it just a class or two that has come in? And so I'm very excited to see is Lake Highlands still kind of building up to that, back to that peak level of Wildcat football, where everybody would fill up the boneyard, or is it just a couple of years? So I'm very excited to see how Lake Highlands fares this year. But even more in this district, Ward, because I love the little guy. I love the underdog. I'm very excited to see the battle for number 4. It was great last year. I think it's going to be great this year. I got to stick with my guy, Coach Bryant. I'm going to pick Richardson Berkner in the 4th position. But looking at it, I think Irving MacArthur has a really good case to say why they should be number 4. And when you look at the talent that Irving MacArthur has coming back and that they have coming up through the pipeline, it's really hard to say why Irving MacArthur shouldn't be the number 4 pick, but it just seems like something happens every year. They get a couple of injuries, the pigskin bounces their way, a fluke play, a Hail Mary, something has cursed Irving MacArthur over the last few years. So I'm going to pick Richardson Berkner as my 4th place team, while admitting that on paper, Irving MacArthur is a better team.
It's a better team, and you haven't it's funny, last year that Jesuit and Lake Highlands were the cream of the crop. Now you have a 3rd cream of the crop, and you had Berkner make it in there. They finished up 4-7, and Nimitz made the playoffs, and they finished 5-6. But you talk about how fun this bottom tier is, because they'll go into Highland Park in Lake Highlands and Jesuit, and it's like, okay, we're probably going to take our lumps here. But every other game, it's time to get busy. And you haven't even mentioned Pierce yet, and I feel like Pierce is a team that can contend for that 4th spot too. Maybe talk a little bit about them and Richardson as well, Richardson High.
Yeah, Richardson Pierce for me, and again, I cannot jump into the mind of a coach. I'm just going to give you my perspective as a sports writer. When your coach leaves in mid-June to go be an offensive coordinator somewhere else to be with his buddy, I kind of wonder how much talent you have, because if you got a team that you think can compete for a playoff spot, you're not leaving in June. You're sticking around, and you're taking your pay raise, getting your team in the playoffs, and then maybe leaving and selling high. So I'm a little curious about that, and that doesn't give them a big chance to have a big exhaustive search. Jarrett Lambert, a coordinator over at Richardson, is going to come in and fill in that role for Richardson Pierce as the new head coach. Maybe they had a few transfers, maybe some internal turmoil. We can speculate, although we shouldn't. But something is a little amiss there for Richardson Pierce. So, but they got Diego Lopez coming back at running back, Christian Baker, good linebacker, coming in. But Pierce has been kind of, Pierce before Lake Highlands, when Pierce was down in 5A for a while, Pierce seemed to be the team in Richardson ISD, and now it seems to have moved back over to the south side of things with Berkner and Lake Highlands. So Richardson Pierce, for me, I have them more on the bottom side of the district. But again, from probably 2 to 8 or from 4 to 8, I think all of those teams can make a legitimate case for why they would earn that last playoff spot. Irving Nimitz can make that. As you talked about, they made the playoffs last year, and they got their quarterback, Pedro Maldonado, coming back. Coach Rogers has done a really good job over at Irving Nimitz, but the depth, we keep talking about the depth. The Irving ISD depth, they're just not getting the numbers they used to, which is why I'm so excited to see MacArthur. When I look at their playmakers and I watch the film on MacArthur, they look more like Irving from 15, 20 years ago for the first time in a while. We talk about Plano ISD and when the last time they've made the playoffs and when playoff games are. It's been a bit of a dry slump for Irving as well, Irving ISD. You probably remember back in the early 2000s, we used to always find our way over at Irving School Stadium for some Sonic and to catch some of those games, and they play Trinity very well. But it's been a while since there's been a game of note over at Irving School Stadium. I believe it's now Ralph and Joy Evans. You probably know what it is, but that's how long it's been since I've been over.
It has been a while. Matter of fact, the last time I was there, Nimitz played Creekview, and the only thing I remember about that game is Creekview played the whole game without passing once. They ran the ball the whole time. But that's what it is. We haven't mentioned Irving High yet. They're obviously going to struggle as they have in the past couple of years because of the numbers. But is there anything to look out for with the Tigers?
Yeah, I have Irving last in this district. They got their quarterback coming back, which is always going to, talk to the continuity of the program, Adrian Medina. David Munoz has done a great job over at Irving trying to build up the numbers. But Irving in all sports across the board, Irving High in all sports across the board has really struggled over the last decade. And I think that it's going to be another struggle over there. But again, they're going to be competitive against their Irving Nimitz and Richardson and some of the other schools over there. So I think Irving couldn't have picked a better alignment to be with teams that they're going to be competitive with. And again, you get a transfer, you get a couple of young freshmen, sophomores that we haven't heard about, and the distance between 9 and 4 in this district, like I keep saying, is not great enough to just completely write off Irving. I don't think Irving is going to beat Highland Park or Jesuit or Lake Highlands, but to get to 4 and beat Berkner, they have an opportunity for sure.
All right, let's wrap things up with 1 through 9 for me.
I got Highland Park number 1. Love my Scotties. Lake Highlands, and I'm a fan of Lake Highlands. I'm a fan of Coach Jordan over there. He has done fantastic again. It's always good to see a team elevated. Like I'd love to see Irving be competitive again. I remember Greg Gold and some of those Jamal Evans and some of those really good running backs over there at Irving, and I'd love to see Irving get back into the mix. So it's good to see Lake Highlands, and Irving will have its time. I just don't think it's this year. Jesuit number 3. I've got Berkner number 4 with an asterisk, knowing that I think Irving MacArthur is a little bit better. I'm going to put them at 5. Irving Nimitz at 6. Richardson Pierce at 7. Richardson at 8. And Irving at 9. Richardson, to me, though, we didn't talk much about them, is a very interesting number 8. Coach Pels has done a great job over there. They've got some really good players coming back. Donovan Ford at running back. Leon Kroner is a really good free safety. I think Richardson has a really good chance to compete for that 4th playoff spot as well. Would not shock me to see the Eagles back in the playoffs.
Well, I'm thinking we're going to see some Thursday night 7-6A action somewhere. Me and you need to make a pact that we're going to go to Irving School Stadium, which is what I'm going to still call it on Thursday night. You ready to make a pact? Well, I see.
Hey, we go get some tater tots and the foot-long coney. I'm there.
Just park right over there with the ambulance. Walk right on the field.
That's right.
We would talk 8-6A because these guys are going to play some Arlington kids in the first round of the playoffs when they go. We'll talk 8-6A next week.
We'll talk 8-6A next week. We'll see you down the road.
You've given enough of your money to gas and groceries this month, so when it comes to your wireless plan, don't overspend another second. Smile, you're on Cricket.